Cardiff Council has told schools to use handheld scanners to search children suspected of having weapons. This guidance has come after head teachers shared a growing concern about knife crimes in school. But the council's admitted that some parents may feel anxious about the idea of searches. The advice has been given to primary as well as secondary schools and includes training about how to lock down a school in case an emergency does take place. We'll start with you, Clare, on this one. I mean, do you think this is just an inevitability? We've got to face facts, we've got to get on with it, we've got to scan children for weapons?
Not at all, and I think we have to fight against it. I think we need to keep going back to underlying reasons why knife crime is the way it is, why children feel the need to be so violent. Let's tackle that first before we start tackling scanning children to come into a place where they should be learning, where they should be safe. But moreover, the teaching staff have got a right to be safe too. We need to get back to basics. We need to find out the fundamentals, why they're doing it, where they're getting the knives from, tackle that, then tell me that you need to scan children to come into a place of learning.
I just wonder, Pat, you're a dad, you're a granddad. There's a kid, God forbid, in one of your grandchildren's schools with a knife, whether you really think there's time to assess, as Clare says, why they're doing it, what's the motivation. All you really want is to make sure that knife isn't in the classroom and comes nowhere near your grandchildren, don't you?
Well, absolutely. And I think what you're saying is fine, but what happens if something happens in the meantime while you're actually discussing all this and there is a stabbing?
But I can't actually believe that Vanessa had to read something like that out. I mean, I'm sure you might be in agreement, Jerry, but where is our society when we have to do this? Scanning machines are for airports, okay? They're not even there for trains, they're not there for buses. Why on earth should be there for school? We need to find out why the children are behaving the way that they are.
I mean, we've got figures on how many stabbings there were in schools in this country last year. I think it's 631 incidents of that kind of thing.
You don't even need
so
a
much
medal.
more than I thought it was going to be.
Yes, it's a high and it's rising. So, Jerry, you've got how old are your children now?
11 and 16.
Okay,
I had to really think about that. How
yeah,
awful.
11 and 16. So they're
Yeah.
at school.
Yeah.
And all you need to know really is that they're going to be safe.
I agree so much with you. I think that it's really scaremongering. However, I think that there are some schools that are currently really, really struggling with it. I think it has to be school dependent, area dependent. I think if it is needed on a temporary basis while they're sorting the problem out, yes, you need to look at what's really going on. But if there are a high number of stabbings in the school, you've got children, you've got staff, I don't see why you can't have them as a temporary measure while you sort the problem out.
They'll have scissors in schools, okay? You can stab with a scissor, you can stab with a pen, okay? That is not, scanning children is not going to stop something like this happening.
Well, it might deter the child from bringing a knife into school, for example.
But they'll still have knives from the school lunch area. They'll still have scissors from art or science.
It's going to be like the airport, you know, when you're on an airplane and you have the little tiny knife with the blunt end. All children will have to go around with blunt. But I do think that if you're a teacher and there's a problem with stabbing at the school, you'd want something serious to be done about it.
Do you not think as well it might lull the school community into a false sense of security, thinking that every child that's walked through, there is nothing, they're safe.
Yeah.
They don't have these physical, they don't have the physical ability to cause any harm because they've walked.
And I wonder
it.
whether it might almost put the idea into
Someone's
children's
head.
heads and create like a dangerous setting.
But in my experience, and I've talked about this, I've done lots of shows on gang crime and lots of shows on, growing up in the most dangerous estates in the country, all over the country. And what seems to happen here is this terrible kind of breakdown of understanding where children carry knives because they think they'll be safer.
Yeah.
But they won't.
Yeah.
And the police are always trying to get this across. Sometimes they do it using very lurid photographs. Sometimes they take children, would you believe it, on trips to the morgue to see the bodies. Because the actual equation is if you carry a knife, you're much more likely, A, to get very badly hurt yourself, and B, to hurt somebody else. And so it isn't a safety measure, only it's very, very hard indeed to get that through to children who feel as if, as they say, they're tooled up. They'll be protected. Actually, it makes them terribly vulnerable, but it's very, very hard to get
We've
them
kind
over,
of almost seen that happen. We've seen that escalate in America where people have guns because people have guns. And once that's happened, it's very difficult to get the horses back in the barn.
Yes, quite.
Because
exactly.
everyone has them.
Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Anne in West Yorkshire. So, Anne, the idea of children, even primary school children, being scanned for weapons, particularly knives, on their way into school. What do you think of this?
I don't think I like the idea of a hand scanner at all and picking out certain children. I think an archway where all the children just get used to going through the archway, and so no one will think about it even after a while. I think that's a much fairer way of doing it, and if it saves one life, then it's been worth it.
Why don't you like the idea of a handheld scanner? And particularly, why don't you like the idea of teachers saying, well, I think it's that kid over there. That's the one you need to scan. Why wouldn't you think that was a good idea, Anne?
I don't like the idea of children being picked out randomly like that, and other children hearing about it. And I think that could cause a lot of trouble for a child in school.
But it's not randomly, it's picked out with purpose, isn't it? It's picked out because there is some kind of alert, there's some kind of warning, there's some kind of feeling that that child might be bringing really serious potential trouble into school. So you might say, why would you scan every child? It's the ones who might be a problem that are the ones that needs to, this particular kind of attention.
Yes, but if that child hasn't got a knife and isn't a child that carries a knife, they then, by their friends and other peers, will be labelled as maybe a knife-carrying child. And that's why I don't like the idea of a child being targeted like that.
And the idea that this is happening in Cardiff, this isn't something we're discussing maybe, perhaps, what do we think? It's happening. So there must be a really profound feeling amid those people there making the decisions that this is something urgent that they've got to initiate.
Well, I do think the archway idea is a much better idea, and I do think it would just normalise the children coming into school rather than children being targeted.
I don't know whether Clare Muldoon would like the idea of a normalising of being, going through a knife arch every day.
No, you're right. And Anne, you make such great points. But I do think that the continuity of being able to arm yourself and think of going to school, which is supposed to be a place of learning, is supposed to be a place of safety and respite for a lot of children. I think it's such a sad indictment for society that this indeed is actually being used in Cardiff, and I hope it won't be spread out over the country. And I wish that we would have better education, both of parents, Anne, but also teaching staff as well on how to deal with this, but moreover, the poor souls themselves that seem so lost, so disenfranchised, that they feel the only way they can either communicate or live is through a life of violence. And I think that is the crux of the matter. And I wish that that's the matter that we would address and deal with.
All right, thanks, Clare. And thanks to Anne. We've had a couple of messages coming through online. Neil on Facebook says, 50 years ago, we had a penknife in our school trouser pocket to cut the string of a ball of string when your conker fight ended. With a broken string or the classroom pencil sharpener broke down. It's absolutely true. Used to buy boys for their bar mitzvahs when they were 13, one of those Swiss Army knives as a present. And nobody said it was a bad thing. And that was how many years ago? 20 or something?
And they're still alive.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And Ayla on Facebook says, I think it's a shame that we have to do this. However, the message does need to be got through to young people that carrying any weapon is not to be tolerated. It would really help, though, wouldn't it, if they got the message that it's going to endanger them,
their lives.
Save them.
Yep.
Somehow or other, it's a very hard message to communicate. I'm not quite sure why. It's so hard to understand. Greatly increases your risk of being hurt, but people don't seem to get that at all. I think one of the problems with all of this, of course, is that we keep saying if they feel they're threatened. They probably know they're threatened, don't they, Pat? I mean...
I think so. I think, to be honest with you, out of everything that everybody said about this, surely it starts at home. So if the parents are bringing their kids up properly, they're making sure that you definitely haven't got any kind of knife on you before you go to school. That would be the first thing I would say if my kids were little now. I would just say that. So you probably wouldn't even need to have this archway or anything because it starts at home.
On the
surely.
other hand, it's not the kind of thing you tell your parents, is it? If you're carrying a knife to school,
maybe
you don't announce to your mum and dad, hey, when you're looking for the bread knife, I've got it because I've taken it to school, do you? And you know what teenagers are like. Yeah. They don't make a full confession of everything they're intending to do before they go to school.
Or maybe they should get searched at home before they go to school.
Well, that's a possible suggestion, isn't it?